Hello, everybody. Welcome. We're going to give everyone else just another minute or so to jump in. Appreciate you being here today. We are going to cover 529 plans. We've got Dr. Richard Hopkins here, and he's a huge believer. He's used the 529 for years for his kids. I'm really excited about today because I have been using the 529 for my kids, but they're not in college yet. So this is going to be interesting to learn, and I hope that it's something that can impact your lives. But we're going to see if we get a couple more jump on here. I think we're ready to roll then. Let's do this. Okay, so as we get more in here, I want to remind everybody, again, I'm Jake Rushton. I've got Dr. Richard Hopkins here. If you have questions, and as we ask questions, I want you to interact, and please use the chat at the bottom. We're monitoring that, so you can go ahead and hit in there. You can change it from everyone to just I think it's to myself, to Jake, to able to ask your questions. So whatever comes up, please, as we go through this, reach out through that. That'll be the best way that we can kind of keep everybody involved. Other than that, we're going to get started here because we know your time is valuable. So I'm going to turn the time over to Dr. Hopkins and let him introduce himself and talk a little bit more about his background and jump right into the presentation.
Thanks, Jake. And thanks for True North Retire for hosting me here. And frankly, thank you for listening. I know your time is valuable, and I feel fortunate you take some time in your day to listen to us. I want to help tailor this to your needs. And so I'll be asking a few questions. I'm used to working in the crowd when I do stuff like this, Jake. And so this COVID's been a little tough for me. But so please help interact with me. You're welcome to use your chat box and tell me, first of all, two things. In what state do you pay taxes? What state are you coming from? Because I know we have some people from Idaho, a couple from Arizona. I think we're mainly from Utah here, but we can help tailor this towards you with this. And then secondly, are you a grandparent, or what are the ages of your children if you're a parent? Because we can tailor it a little bit to the younger children, older children, things like that. So anyway, let's move along, Jake, and get started.
All right, let's pull up the presentation here. And again, if you want, you can take notes, but we're going to also repost this video and the presentation to our blog online. So you'll get an email about that so that you have access to that later on too. So you should be able to see our screen now for the presentation. So
awesome, thanks. If you have troubles seeing it, please use your chat box and let us know, but we'll presume things are working as they should. Well, our outline basically is, why should I care? I think this is important to step back and say, why should we do a 529 plan? We'll go over the basic 529 principles, and then I'll talk about a few out-of-the-box strategies, including a pretty complicated one that I do. So you're welcome to listen or to kind of forget and let your financial advisor help you with some of the complex ones. And then we want to make sure we save time for your questions, because there are always a lot of questions in these. I've given this lecture maybe 15 times or so to different audiences, and always a lot of questions. Let's go to the next slide, and we'll talk about the why. Why should I care? You know, the old paradigm was your mom told you should go to college because you'd get a better degree and you'd get a better job and you'd make more money. The new paradigm is a little bit different. Look at the second bullet point. Jobs are about 20 times more likely to go away with technology if they're paying less than $20 an hour. In the Great Recession, unemployment was 11% versus 5%. It's starting to split out. And what we're finding, this is a Forbes article from 2020, May 2020, so it's right in here, last couple of weeks. The lack of a bachelor's degree results essentially in doubling an adult's risk of unemployment during tough economic times. Well, what does that mean? Well, the new paradigm is not you're going to get a better, higher paying job. It's that you'll have a job, Jake.
right.
You're gonna have a job if you get a degree. And so this is a little bit of a new paradigm. These median earnings on the top bullet point, these increase with a degree significantly, particularly for minorities, for women. The Asians were over 100% difference. I think it was 106% difference if they have a degree above high school. Well, so how do we, I'm going to throw in my political statement with the next slide here. How do we best, next slide please, how do we best get out of decreased poverty, more educated populace, and upward mobility? Should we give people more student loans? I think we've tried this one. Should we give them more handouts? I'm not a real handout guy. I don't think that's going to do it. I think the answer is, frankly, to prepare for college, and to prepare means to save money in college savings plans. So next slide, please. These are my test cases. I'm a proud dad, and my beautiful daughter started us off with a master's degree. She married a guy in dental school, and he went on to be an orthodontist. That was 7 years of financial pain. And then we've had a medical student who's now in residency. We've got a pharmacy student, and I still have one in college. So as you can tell, I'm a real expert in paying tuition for college. I don't want anyone to think that I gifted my kids all their money, but there are ways to work this through loans and through letting them help. So we're going to talk about basic benefits. Next slide, please. My 529s were created in 1996. And I'm just going to read this great source of Wikipedia. It was one of my better sources, but it gives things like matching grants, scholarship opportunities, protections from creditors, exemption from state financial aid. There are just a whole host of great things that these plans can do. A few states, I think they're now 10, they're going down, allow you to pre-purchase. Utah is not one of them, so we won't talk about them. And I don't think Idaho or Arizona are either. They're administered by the states, and in 2018, they increased a few of their benefits for elementary school, for middle school, high school, and also for paying back loans. If you have a loan, that's a great way to consider doing it, is to run it through a 529, get a tax benefit, and then pay off your student loan. That works in Idaho, it works in Arizona, it does not work in Utah. So let's go to the next slide, and we'll focus mainly today on Utah's My 529 plan, because most of you pay Utah taxes. Number two, I know this plan the best. Number three, it's ranked the highest in the nation. And it's so good that over 90% of the money coming into Utah is from out of state.
Really?
The benefits are so good that other states are using Utah's plan, which benefits those of us in Utah. We get to use their money. For that one, you go to my529.org, and they have over $13 billion and over 400,000 accounts now. My number there of 375 is a little bit old. The main thing to notice here is the lower bullet point. The Utah taxpayers receive a 5% state tax credit for every dollar up to $204 per beneficiary in 2020. That changes every year. Just as an aside, those of you that know taxes realize that a tax credit is significantly different than a tax benefit, a tax deduction. The credit, the best part of that in my mind is that low-income people receive the same amount of money as the higher income people. And so those people who are trying to save for college for their kid, it's the first kid in the family maybe to go to college, lower income, they're getting the same benefit in Utah that the more wealthy families are. Whereas with a deduction, the wealthier the family, the bigger the benefit is with the deduction.
So that wouldn't matter. So your income, your federal income tax, that has nothing to do with this. This is just your state
Yeah,
tax.
I think it was 98, I believe. Might have been the early 2000s that the federal tax got out of it.
Okay.
Initially, the beginning, Utah was not one of the first states to do their plan because they wanted to wait to see what the federal tax did, and eventually Congress was able to pass that and get out of the way. So federal tax is not an issue once we start the 529.
Got it.
Well, let's go to the next slide where we have a little bit more detail here. And you're welcome to screenshot these slides because some of them get kind of wordy, but there's just a lot of information. It's kind of hard to know what to leave in, what to get out. I'll start with Arizona. They have lower taxes in Arizona, Jake. Their effective rates, their higher rates like 3.3%. And so they're not getting as much of a benefit. They get about $133 if they go up to $4,000 deduction. And that's their max, is up to $4,000 deduction if you donate $4,000 to your child. So they have different options, and you can open one for yourself, which is a great option. If you decide at age 40, 50 to go back to school, you can open one up for yourself. I would recommend the lower cost Fidelity choice. They have 3 choices to do that. Some of them are a little more expensive and a little higher fee, but the deduction gets up to $133 per that's per taxpayer. Then the Ideal program in Idaho, you can go to idsaves.org and check that one out. You get up to $831 per taxpayer, which is up to $12,000 deduction. And the fee range is a little higher, you notice, than Arizona and Utah, 0.49. Their minimum, you have to have a minimum where the other states do not, but it's $25. You can still open one for yourself. And they are currently, and those in Idaho, please listen up, today through Friday. So just in the next 2 days, they're matching your first $25. If you put 25 bucks in, they match it if your child is less than 5 years old. So a couple of stipulations, but get that word out to your friends in Idaho.
That's the 529 day, right? May 29th is kind of a big day.
May 29th.
In the 529 world. So if you don't have one, that's a day to open one for sure, because there's a lot of benefits in a few states, and Idaho is one of those. And I think you're going to talk about Utah as well. So the 529 is always important to think about, but it's one of those things you probably have on your checklist that just never get to it. So use the date 529 as your day to get going. That's
there you go.
Idea.
Except that these programs tend to run out of money on their matches. So do it as early as you can.
Okay. So don't wait. Go now.
And do 527. So Utah gives a 5% credit we talked about. There's no maximum of accounts. And so we know people that have over 40 accounts for all their grandkids and things. What's 40 times 200 and 204? 40 times 204. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
It has really low fees. That's one reason they're ranked first in the nation. It has matching grants. It has had in the past matching grants up to $300. I have to tell you, I've been looking on the site this week. It's not on the site. There's a chance the legislature will not approve it next year. We hope that the Regent Scholarship, and we'll talk more about that, will be renewed. Now, Utah's big kicker here, Utah's needs to be open before age 19 in order to qualify for the 5% state credit. If you open it over age 19, you're going to have to pay state tax on that money.
And that's for the beneficiary of the plan. Right?
That's the beneficiary of the plan. Yeah. Now, people can open them for themselves as soon as they turn age 18. So you have a year in there. If you're 18, you can open one for yourself. But over 19, you lose that 5% credit. So a couple of differences in each state.
Okay, so real quick before we move on to the next slide. So Utah's a 5% tax.
Credit.
Okay, tax credit. But as far as like taxes go for each state, Utah's 5%, Idaho's around 7, Arizona's about 3.3. Let's say you're in Idaho, you max out your $12,000 deduction, you save $831. What should you do then? Should you continue to fund
Yeah, that's an
the
awesome
Idaho
question.
plan, or should you go?
Yeah, and
somewhere else?
most people, what they're doing is they're in Idaho and Arizona, they'll go up to where they can with their deduction. Let's say I have 4 children and I want to gift $1,500 a year each. Well, I'm going to pull over my $4,000 deduction in Arizona. So what people are doing at that point is they're moving the rest of their money to Utah. They don't get the 5% credit, but they do have lower fees, and it's higher ranked nationally as far as earnings, ease to use on the computer, things like that. Okay. So they'll go up to the max of their deduction. That's up to $12,000 in Idaho. If you want to give more to your kids, grandkids, then you move your money to Utah's plan for the rest of that. Okay,
gotcha.
That's a great question. Okay, so does the donor or the child own his or her 529 account? And the answer is the donor. That's really important, particularly for grandparents. We're going to have a quick session on grandparents, but you know, the grandparent might need that money someday. They might need to do something with it, but you're able to pull it back. Let's move on. If you need it for medical bills, you can pull it back. Things like that as needed. So I'll let you just read down these things. We've talked mostly about them, but this is the Utah account. Not only is there no charge to open an account, they're matching you right now. We didn't talk as much about that one. That one's through May 31st. They will match you $25. And then if you will go and hook up your bank account so that they can withdraw money every month. Yeah. A direct deposit or
that's what I do. Every month it just automatically pulls in for I have 5 kids and just pulls in money for their savings.
And that's what I do too. If you'll do that, with $1 a month, they will give you $15 in 6 months. Okay. And so it's a total match of $40. And we have the what you do is you go on their website and you put in they have a code that you can put in. Here we go. Here's the code as you set it up. Here it is, 529-DAY 2020, 529-DAY 2020 is how you do that. You put the promotional code as you set up the account. 529.
I'll put that in the chat for everybody.
You better put capital D because I don't know if they'll take cap. 529 capital DAY 2020 is their promo code, and that will get you up to $40.
So use that promo code I just put in the chat. So if you have it, good time to get started because you can get a little bit of free money on top of what you're putting in yourself, plus the 5%
so next
benefit.
Slide. All right, let's move on here. Now you know some of the things you can start understanding why it's such a great deal. It's similar to a Roth in that you put post-tax money in and then it comes out tax-free as long as you're paying for college expenses. The things the Roth doesn't do is it gives you, the 529 gives you immediate 5% tax credit. And they match you this week. Yeah. You can withdraw essentially immediately. With the Roth, you'd have to wait a few years and be over 59.5. And then it's tax-free withdrawal for the higher ed expenses. Now, what are the higher ed expenses? Here you go. one thing we get is 1 year, our computer that we buy our kid, Jake, it looks a lot more like a cell phone.
Yeah.
And the next year, it looks a lot more like a laptop. But we get a computer every year for our kids so that they can have those things through their 529 plan. And depending on when you started the account, of course, you're saving 20, 30% on that computer. Room and board is important because my boys eat quite a bit when they're in college. And so a lot of the food is
So as long as they're eating
really
food at college.
yeah, and they have to be
counts.
enrolled greater than half time for some of these things. And then, of course, tuitions, books, the required fees. And then note at the bottom that they've increased it now to elementary and middle school tuition if you have tuition costs, things like that. Just a reminder, it's not your car, it's not insurance, it's not spring break vacations, it's not an LDS mission or other missionary type activities.
Got it. Okay.
So I called around and went to other advisors around town. And the amazing thing to me is that this is so not well advertised. They're trying on TV, but this is why. The other advisor said, quote, many times he just puts you into a regular plan with fewer restrictions. Well, if you think about that, a savings account would not give you the 5% tax break. It wouldn't have as low of fees.
Right.
And they've been doing really well.
You'd be taxed on distributions.
You'd be taxed on their
biggest part of it
distributions.
is if you have time on your side, because I have a 4-year-old and I'm saving for her for the next 14 years. Well, at the end, there's going to be some growth there in the market, I would expect.
So another one said, it doesn't matter, ironically, which state plan you use. And I've just got 3 states up here that they recommended, by the way. And then when pressed, one of the advisors said, well, there's a tiny benefit on Utah taxes with that plan. Okay, why do advisors tend not to let us know about this?
It's simply because Utah doesn't pay them.
There's
no way they can get paid to give you advice to use that account.
That's right. This is a no commission plan.
They don't advise to do it.
And so it's really sad. In fact, I would, if I had a financial advisor, I'd go ask them what they would recommend I do for a 529 plan. If they didn't say, go to the state you're paying taxes in, particularly in Utah, that to me would be a litmus test.
Yeah,
right there.
Flag for sure.
You know they're looking at it for money.
Because this first one here, which state is this? This is
Virginia.
Virginia, okay.
Come
which
on,
is
Jake,
done.
you should know
I
your
thought that
map,
was.
man.
It's been a long time since 5th grade. This that's the American Funds one, right? I think.
I did this a couple of years ago, and so I'm not.
I think that's American
sure
Funds, and
exactly.
I think that's the reason that probably comes up a lot is that's one that does pay advisors. I know that's when I worked with
most
other
of these
firms,
do, because these are the ones they recommended.
They would get paid a commission to put you into that 529 plan, so they go with that one.
That's correct.
The difference in Utah, they don't get paid, but you can still have access and help give good advice and give help on the investment allocation, but you don't have any commission paid to you as an advisor. So that's probably why it's not as popular among different advisors.
Super. So in the past, and I'm hoping this year the legislature will again approve it, but if you can get the Regent Scholarship, which is a common scholarship, and I gave you a website, stepuputah.com. Look that up. You have to take a few specific classes, but if you can get that scholarship, which is sponsored by the Utah legislature, and you contribute $100 when the child is age 14, 100 at 15, and 100 at 16. In the past, my 529 has matched you $300. So you can get an extra match. So if you go to the next slide, now we're talking big money. Utah outperforms by over 70% if you pay taxes in Utah and you get that Regent Scholarship. And so real important, go to stepuputah.com and hit Explore. There's a button, Explore, and you can find the requirements for the classes that you need to take.
Okay.
So another quiz question, what is the minimum? It's $0 in Utah and Arizona. So at minimum, we really should be starting an account for every child in Utah before they're age 19, because if they decide not to go to college immediately, no loss. But if they decide at age 25, 30, they wake up, say, wow, I need a better job, I need to go back to school, then you can reopen that account and get those tax benefits again. But if you don't open it by the time they're 19, they don't get those.
You don't get any benefit from the state.
From the state. And so to me, I mean, 5% off all tuition, all your food, all your room. I mean, this is big money.
Yeah.
So just a quick example, if you want to screenshot this, this is a little bit fuzzy math. I did some quick figures, but if you put it in a 2% CD, you're going to get taxed on a small amount of interest. This is over 3 years. $100 for 3 years. You're going to gift $312. If you put it in an 8% mutual fund, you're going to get about $354. But look what happens when you put it into my 529 account at 8% again. You're going to receive $15 back. You'll get interest on that $15. You're going to get Utah. You're going to get the growth. You're going to be able to sell it and pay 0% taxes on the profit. You get up to $378, $79. Then you get the Regents match. You have the potential to get about 132% on your money in 3 years.
That's, yeah.
I mean, these are big dollars, and I hope that we can make sure the word gets out. Okay, let's go to the next slide, which is one of my favorites. This is my grandparent application page. Number 2, I get all the time as a financial advisor, Jake. It said, I've given my children all the money they're going to get, but boy, I sure love my grandkids. And they're willing to do that. Well, why not give them your birthday present as a 529 plan, Christmas present. Something like that. I'm going to give you an education gift. You can gift it to the girl down the street. You can pull the money back out. You get to control it. And you're getting up to $204 per account back on your taxes. Number 5 doesn't apply to many of us, but if you want to leave something in your estate, they allow you to gift up to $150,000 per child in 1 year. And so the sky's the limit, really. You don't get the tax break over $4,080 filing jointly or $2,040 single.
Right.
But you can gift that money in 1 year to a child or a grandchild. Okay, other quick benefits. We've gone through most of these, a little bit of a rehash. You can shift between family accounts. And this is important. I had a person just last month. I was counseling that person, advising that person financially, and they said, God, we'd sure love to do that 529, but we got a late start. And so our kid, one of them is 20 and one of them's 10, one of them's 5, one of them's 15. And we just got a late start. And so this 20-year-old's not going to get the benefit where the 5-year-old might. And I said, well, you can shift those from the other 3 children to the 20-year-old. He had an account. He just didn't have much in it.
Right.
And so you can shift all of those to the 20-year-old for 4 or 5 years as he goes through college. You then keep that account and keep adding money to it. You shift it from he's 25 years old back to the younger kids.
You can change the beneficiary.
You can shift those beneficiaries twice a year.
I think that's important thing to understand, because a lot of people don't do it because they think this child is going to get a scholarship or they're not going to go to college, and so they just don't do it. But thinking, I have 5, I do it for all of them. Who knows what will happen, but at least I can move it around if I need to.
Well, and even that kid with the scholarship, I had one of these last week. They said, oh, I'm just planning on my kid doing it on their own because they're getting scholarship. They're brilliant. And that's true. But how many brilliant kids go on to graduate school? A good number of them.
There's always going to be some expense.
And those graduate schools, they don't give as many scholarships.
Yep.
Okay. So the answer here is, of course, A.
Yep. So the list is pretty big. So think of your 529 account. I always look at it 3 buckets, right? Now, we obviously Insurance Retire run a lot of 401k plans. That's our core business. The 529 is a piece of the puzzle, as well as the HSA or health savings account. And I look at those 3 different expenses that are pretty heavy in our lives: retirement, education, and healthcare. And so when you think of your HSA, yeah, you can use for medical. Think about 529. Education, it's a pretty big list. So knowing that that's a pretty broad thing outside of just tuition, to me is helpful. I mean, maybe I'll just have enough to cover books at the time. Who knows how much I'll be able to save for my kids, but it'll help a little. And that's important.
Super. Well, this is my favorite part, Jake, of this is the out of the box ideas. And we've already started in on these. Let's go to the third one, the gifting towards education. I have a grandkid, and if anybody wants to gift him money, he has an account. And how about if you're graduating, and people give graduation presents or something, send them a postcard that looks like this, and they can go in to the website and they can just gift money towards the college savings account instead of giving them some present that you're not sure if they're going to use.
The pile of toys in my basement, if that had been put into the 529 instead, my kids would be a lot happier later on, because they lose interest. And sometimes we feel like you want to just keep buying toys. And how many times you go to the store and you're looking around for a gift?
Yeah.
And maybe the kid won't appreciate it now, but I'm sure down the road, this is a great way to do it.
Right. And you can send out these postcards too. Like I say, for someone who's graduating or something. Yeah. So when they graduate from preschool, graduate from elementary school, send out a card to all their relatives, and maybe they can throw that in.
Yeah.
And then if you want the student to do it on their own, I get a few of these. I did it on my own, so I'm going to make sure that my kid has to do it on their own. I met one of these today, and he's going to medical school. Well, hey, wouldn't you like to save 5% off of all medical school? So you should at least open up an account before they're age 19, so that they can even run it through themselves. And then you could match them 5% when you get it back from your taxes.
Right.
If you start late, we've already talked about this. Make sure you know that you can do sibling transfers, and you can transfer it to other nieces, nephews, grandchildren, of course, and things like that. I have go ahead and leave that. I have a story here that the question is, what if I don't use all my money? This is a common question. Well, number one, the child may go back later. Mm-hmm. Number two, they may decide to go to school. Maybe initially they didn't decide, but then 2 or 3 years they kind of wake up and decide to go to school. Yeah. You can transfer it to your siblings or relatives, and then you can save it for your grandkids. Let's say you have an extra $1,000. You say, you know what, I'm going to let that grow for 10 years until my oldest grandkid comes up.
Right.
Or if you want, you can pull it out. You pay the state tax. You pay 10% on your gains only. So if you think about it, you put $1,000 in, you earn $100. You're really only paying on the gains. Yeah. For your taxes on the penalty. So, $10, that's doable. This last little bit is something I thought that I would just go through. How did I get to about $350,000? Let's say that your kid says, Daddy, I'm 14, 15 years old, and I want to go to medical school. And medical school or dental school costs $50,000 a year tuition. Right now, it's going to go up. And you're going to need room and board, other things like that. And so I just decided to go ahead and put in kind of the things that we did. This is getting into the weeds a little bit, so I want to make sure people step back and not worry about it, but go and have a financial advisor help you with stuff like this. But we put in our yearly maximum, got 5% credit we put in and got tax-free growth over the 10 years. Usually accounts can double in the range of 10 years.
Mhm.
So we got double. We didn't have any capital gains or taxes when we took it out. We shifted more between siblings to help this particular person go through medical school. And then that wasn't going to be enough. And so the government allows you to gift anyone $15,000 each. Oh, and so my wife gifted this child, and I gifted this child. Over 4 years, we each gifted 15, so 30,000 a year. We then transferred some old stock, and we gave. You can transfer more than 15,000 a year in that, but these people that are going to school are not in the high income bracket anymore, right?
Right, so
And so they're not paying capital gains on
Right,
this
you
stuff.
gave it to them, which
So I gifted the
removes some
stock,
tax.
and so
Yeah,
I would have
that's the-
paid capital gains, but my child did not
Right, okay.
at that rate. And then I personally decided to forgive a certain amount, and the 50,000 is not correct, but I'm just giving it as an example. I told my child, look, this money is your inheritance. Don't expect anything when I die, because you need it more now than you're going to need it when I'm 80 and I die and you're 50, right? You're going to be more established. And so I gave them part of it back, inheritance, and then I loaned them the rest of it at a low rate. I had a 70-30 portfolio. I had a 70% stocks and 30% bonds, but I shifted that.
Okay.
I shifted it to an 80% stock, 20% bonds, because my child is more of my bond, right? He's part of my bond fund. He's part of my loan.
Because he's going to pay you back.
He's going to pay me back. And
Right.
so, and then I, of course, all the way through encourage frugality and scholarships.
Okay.
And so that's how I do it. A little bit more of a complex thing, but these are big money items, and it takes some creativity to really get through them.
And this is flipping it around from coming out of school with this huge burden, this huge loan on top of them that kind of sets them back in their future plans with
And their
family.
credit score.
Their credit score is going to be tough. They're not going to be able to do the things that they want to. But who knows what they're going to try and do after that? If they're going to buy a practice or they're going to start a business, then it starts a whole other host of problems. If you can kind of flip the script around and get a head start on it beforehand, it's going to give them a much higher potential to see success at a much quicker rate. And in turn, hopefully they'll be able to do the same for their family. And
Sure.
It creates a legacy.
Well, Jake, you didn't give me a timer. I don't have any timer. How'd we do?
We're about 12:40, almost 12:40.
Excellent. Well, let's go for questions
Let's see if
here.
there's any
See what
questions
you
in the
got.
chat. Hopefully that was helpful for everybody. I know it's the 529. I don't see any questions. If you have questions, put them in the chat. We want to answer them. Let's stop this share and then let's just talk for a second. So again, when I got started with my 529 plan, I did it right away once I started having kids, and then I had to keep adding more as we had 5 kids. And now it's just one ACH out of my bank account every month. I think it comes out on the 15th. I don't even notice it. It's not as high as I would want, but it's something, and it doesn't really hurt my bank account too much. And I know that it's starting to build. So as I start to show that to my kids, now that they're older, my oldest is 14, down to 4, they get a little bit more excited. They're like, wow, I have this money in this account. That's cool. I want to go to college. And they start to think through what they're going to do in their career. So there's a real benefit to starting this because it gives the kids, I think, feeling like you're behind them, like you're encouraging them to start to think
Well,
bigger.
Again, people say, well, I don't want to have to subsidize my kids' education, but why don't you open up the account and allow them to contribute as they're 14 and have a little job, 15, 16, have a little job. You give them a little bit for their birthday or something, and then match what you get back in taxes. Even if you do this, you're going to do something and teach your kids how to save for college.
Yep. Yeah. And I know I was lucky enough to get through college on a running scholarship, and my wife had a softball scholarship. So I didn't come out of school with any debt, which was a huge help for me. And if you can start now young, you can do the same, even if you don't get the same scholarships, because a lot of these programs are changing. I know where I went to school, BOU Hawaii doesn't have that program anymore. So running isn't a thing. So who knows what my kids will do, but this is one way to at least help in some way. So it's always one of those things you think you should do, but just take action. Like that's the biggest thing. Just start, use this opportunity to get going. And I think you'll see the benefits later.
I think the perception is you have to have a lot of money to do something like this. But remember, you can open an account with $0. You don't have to have any money to do this.
Right.
And so just start with $1, $10. Again, my quest with all this is to help particularly the people who are lower income to learn more about this.
Yeah.
To help people who are first time in college. You know, people who are wealthy, maybe they can afford to just help pay for their kid to go to college anyway. But this program really helps the middle, lower class. We talk about upward mobility. This is the way.
Yeah. Well, we got a great question here. Let's go through this. Other than the match by the state, what would be the benefits of a 529 over doing a Roth IRA, which you could take the principal out. Roth IRA, you can always take that out because you've already paid the taxes on it. The growth, that's another, you would have the 10% penalty if you took that out early. But rest of the question, which then gives you the flexibility to use the funds for things besides education, such as a down payment on a house. So good question.
Why don't you go with that, because it's mainly the taxes. You know, you can do that with a Roth, but these fees are really low. The earnings are good, and then you know, with the Roth, you're going to it's going to be a little bit more difficult to get things in and out correctly.
Yeah, because the Roth has the 10% penalty before age 59 and a half. So yes, you could take out the principal that you put in. There's a little bit of a process to do that. And if you did the Roth really low cost on your own, say like at Vanguard directly or something like that, it's going to be pretty close to the same as, you know, the expenses of the 529. I think the benefit really is to say this is for education purposes. It almost pegs it into that one hole, like you're going to spend this on education. Whereas your Roth, it does open up, and taking money out for, you know, down payment on a house, I would almost rather do that in a different account completely just for that purpose. That'd be that's how I like to do it. And I think trying to lump every goal into one account can be difficult. And I wouldn't say Roth is the way to do that.
I would add that as an advisor, a Roth is the greatest account to end up with at the end. And so anytime you're taking things out of a Roth, I really
and your annual limits for Roth are 6,000, whereas the 529 really has no limit.
Yeah,
you're maxed out at the benefit in Utah at 4,000, where you're getting the $204 credit.
But you can have numerous accounts.
But you can have multiple accounts for each kid, so your limit's going to be much higher. So I would say, in my opinion, would be do both. Do the Roth IRA. Yeah. Once the kids start making some money, they can do their own Roth IRA. And the 529 really can start when they're not able to earn money yet.
I can see that as a plan, as a backup. You do a 529. If they overspend the 529, you've gone to zero balance in the 529, then they could maybe move to the Roth as a secondary. I hadn't thought of that. Really, that's a good question, Brent.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. I think down payment on a house is a whole nother, we see that a lot in the 401k plan. I think too many times we treat the 401k plan as it's only for retirement, when the 401k is really, it should be that emergency account. If you need to get to it, you can. Most 401ks have a loan provision or a hardship provision. And especially this year, we've got COVID-19 where you can get money out and avoid that 10% penalty. So I almost think the 401k would be easier to pull money out, and you have a higher limit there as well to contribute each year. But the big variable there is the fees. So there's still a wide range of costs in the 401k. Our plans, we really are heavy on keeping those fees as low as possible as we continue to see technology improve. But there's still plans out there that are upwards of 2% a year, and you don't want to be putting away a lot of money there. But don't be afraid to utilize your 401k for such things as like a down payment. I think that can be a smart move.
As a loan, make sure you pay it back.
Yeah, pay it back, but that's interest to yourself. So I think there's a stigma against using it, and I don't think that's super right all the time. Every scenario is a little different. So I think important is to have those three buckets and naming them what they're for. Your 401k, and I guess there's four buckets. Your IRA kind of lumps into the 401k retirement bucket. And then your HSA, that's the benefit. I mean, HSA is the most powerful account out there because it's tax-free in and tax-free out. And if you don't use it for medical, it basically turns into a 401k at the end, essentially anyway, to use for anything. And then, your 529 is for education only. So they all work well together.
I would add, get a second set of eyes on something like this. Get a financial advisor, fee only, that is going to
Look at your tax returns.
Look at these things and look at your personal situation, because everybody's so different.
Yeah, everybody's in a different federal tax bracket, which can impact where you should fund that money. So there's definite benefits to knowing which bucket or which bracket you're in from the government side, from the federal side, which state you live in, and know where to put that money and know when you're going to take it out and which order. And that's where an advisor that takes that serious, that isn't trying to push you in a product, can be really, worth every penny. So yeah, definitely understand all the difference, because each one is an account type. Too many times we lump in the name of an account type as an investment. It's not. Inside of the account type is the investments. That's why Utah's is so great, because it's low cost investments. So make sure you know that these are account types, not investments themselves. So I don't know if that's useful or not. I get rambling about those things. So
I don't see passion, Jake.
I've been around a long time. My original entry to this investment world was in operations. So I saw a lot of different account types, and a lot of times there's a lot of misinformation. And so as you start to learn more about these things and then apply what is good out there for your family, which could be different than your neighbor, you start to formulate a plan. And
Jake, I'd put a plug in for you. You know that every time I speak to somebody about retirement, I try and get you involved and on the phone or in person. And Jake is just so knowledgeable about these things. He's an awesome resource. Appreciate.
Yeah. And I like how working with Richard and knowing, because I don't have any doctors in my family, so it's really interesting to see the path that all of his kids have gone. And I think I probably have one or two of my kids are really interested in that path of a PhD and those kind of things. And so how to pay for it, I'm still trying to put more in my 529 because it's going to be expensive. It's only going to get more expensive. And so each of us have those opportunities to help our next generation. And I think a lot of times we overspend right now and get ourselves in a debt situation. Whereas if we can just be a little bit smarter and get them prepared
ahead of time, yeah,
we're going to see some success. And that's what I love about this. So I don't see any more questions in the chat. If there's not any more, we're going to go ahead and just wrap it up. We're going to repost this and share it on our blog. So it's on truenorthretire.com and our blog there. We'll put it on YouTube as well. So if you have people that ask you, family members or friends that are talking about education expenses and what's going on with everybody working home now, and I think that we're going to see some real amazing changes to education as well. But as it comes up and you want to talk 529 or 401ks or HSAs, we want to make sure you get all the information you need. And then all of this is free. We want to just help you understand these things. And then we're happy to dive deeper if you want to on a personal level at any point. So appreciate you being here today, but share it as well so that we can help get people prepared. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful Wednesday. Stay safe.
Happy 5/20.
Happy May.